Hey everybody, welcome to episode 30. Can't believe it's already at 30 already. Anyways, today's episode I'm going to talk about some more comic books, and I'm going to talk about X Factor. Specifically the original X Factor series that started in 1986. Like I said, that's right there when that came out. That was pretty much right after my comic book reading and collecting started to take off, and it kind of hit me at a really good time, and it was it was neat. I mean, this happens in a lot of different things, but it kind of played into other things too, and I'll show you how exactly. But I have issue number 1 right here. Kind of keep that up for a minute. I have issue number 1. I have most of the run up until issue 50. After 50, it kind of gets into I think 50, the actual issue 50 is done by Rob Liefeld, and it kind of gets into that period where I kind of didn't like it as much. No, I pretty much had a solid run. I have sold off one particular issue. I've sold off number 6, because that is the I might have said before that the first appearance of Apocalypse was in Fall of the Mutants. That's not actually correct. The first appearance of Apocalypse was in issue 6. I forgot about that. And that issue goes for crazy money. And I had it, like I said, back in the Purge a few years ago, and that was one of the ones I got some top dollar for. So I let that one go. I think I let go number 5 with it, I think. I'll have to check. I think I let 5 go with it too. But I think I have 1 through 20 minus 5 and 6. I've got like 8 copies of number 4 for some reason. I kept finding it like in quarter bins and stuff. I have a bunch of copies of number 3 too as well. But no, this one was, this is issue number 1. I think this was a double-sized issue. I'm pretty sure. Was it? It just seemed double-sized. Oh, it's $1.25. That's usually what they charge for a double-sized issue. Or was not, maybe not double-sized. It was definitely longer than your standard comic. Yeah, I was there. How I acquired this, again, this is not the original that I had, but I acquired this, I first kind of discovered it. Like I said, it was before the internet, before like Marvel previews and, and Diamond advanced, previews and all that stuff. DC eventually put out what's called DC Direct, I believe, which was kind of like 2-page, fold in half kind of nice glossy stock little newsletter that they would give out issue freebies when you go get your comics, and it would usually have like the next month's previews. So DC did that. Best of my knowledge, I don't think DC or Marvel really had anything at the time outside of maybe mentioning it as an ad in one of the other comics. But so I don't think I was aware that this was actually coming out at the time, because I wasn't really reading a lot of the issues that built up to this. And I think in the X-Men, I think it kind of came up kind of abruptly too, if I can remember correctly. But I went to go see my sister, in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan in '86, which was probably in her junior year. I know it was cold, so it was probably, because I think this came out in February of '86, so I think it's either right after Christmas or whenever, because like I said, sometimes the date on it wasn't the exact as they come out. But I was up there, and it may have been out for a couple of weeks, because I don't think I picked up comics prior to going on that trip up there. I was actually down over there from where I was in Rochester, but we went back to that VC's, that Village Corner, what do you call it, party store, right down the street from her sorority house, and I went in there, and they had this on the rack, and I was like, what? Oh, what's that? Vex Factor, I didn't know what it was. And at the time, too, I didn't know that these were the original X-Men. Like I said, I was still new to the game, and the X-Men were, like I said, I just assumed they were Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, that type of thing. So I didn't realize that these are the original X-Men. I think people at cons did, or and other older people at the bookstore would talk about that. But I didn't really grasp that at first. I just assumed they're their own team. And because also that like Cyclops wasn't, Marvel Girl weren't in the X-Men specifically at that time, I also assumed that this was like their first start. I knew about Iceman from the cartoon, the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and Angel, and then Beast without his fur. This was new to me, and I think Beast was in. Yeah, Beast loses his fur. I think I want to say it was issue 4 or second issue. I can't remember, but yeah, so I got this, and I really liked X Factor a lot. And then, of course, I want to say, well, check it out here. I want to say that the Marvel Universe that had a Marvel Girl in this costume, because I think she was the only one. Cyclops might have had the X on his costume, maybe, in the Marvel Universe. I can't remember. But maybe I did notice that, but it didn't sink in my head yet, because I think the Marvel Universe had them outside. I think she was the first one to have this costume in the Marvel Universe, and that would have been later in the game, because that was on M, so that might have been, late 85. Yeah, so it might not even have come out yet, I don't think. I'm kind of fuzzy on that part. But regardless, I got the issue, and I was like, oh, I'm getting that every month, so I put that to my list of comics to get, and then of course got number 2, 3, 4, and eventually that, number 6. I remember getting 6 at, I pulled it off a spinner rack, and I believe it was at Fireside Bookstore. Like I said, I would bounce back and forth, and this is right about the time we were about to move from downtown Rochester, which was closer to Rochester Book Center, and up to the trailer park, which is closer to Winchester Mall, where Fireside was. Again, Fireside and Rochester Book Center were owned by the same people. But I think I started getting more stuff at that point there, and I believe, yeah, at 86, I think we were in the trailer park by then, or we just gotten there. No, because we got there late 86, so no, we weren't there yet. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of my dad. My dad moved to his trailer. That's right. So we, I started collecting this, and I just love the comic. And it's weird because again, it was one of those things where the story was kind of, I didn't get it at first. I didn't really understand the whole mutant thing, as far as like the anti-mutant thing, and they were supposed to be mutant hunters, and it didn't really click in my head exactly what they were doing at the time. But I just love the look of them. I love the covers, and at number 6, I really love that cover, and I really loved the art, and I really liked that Cyclops looked really cool. And this is kind of, I didn't really learn how much of a douche he really was, because like I said, he wasn't as douchey in this comic. Even though he kind of ran into, Marvel Girl kind of comes out of nowhere. She's, because she died during the Dark Phoenix, or the Phoenix thing, and then, she comes back, she's, like, underwater, like, frozen on a block of ice, or however that story went, and so she comes back. The issues that lead up to this, they go over that, they show kind of that happening, and then he's reacquainted with her, so, like, again, I wasn't really paying super close attention to the story at the time. I was more into the visuals, and just what was happening, in the action. Like I said, I was a younger kid, teenager, and I couldn't read that well. And the story really wasn't, I didn't really care so much about these stories when I was a kid. To tell you the truth, I don't really care about a lot of the stories nowadays. I know, I'm always barking, nobody can write stories anymore, but at that time, and when it comes to these comics, I don't need a lot of story there, and I don't need a lot of drama and all this other craziness. I want to see the characters in action, doing stuff, looking cool, and cool poses. Essentially all the stuff I complained about the 90s, with how their stuff was very lackluster on the, if not non-existent on the stories, and it was just basically just a bunch of art. I kind of liked that anyways, you know, even though I complain about that, I still, I guess deep down like that, but I just didn't like the way they did it. I like the way certain people do it. I'm weird on that. So, yeah, so let's get into this a little bit. I do have, and I have, what do I have? I have the 3 volumes of the Essentials Guide, which of course, you know, reprints those comics in black and white, which also I really like is cool. And I used these specifically. Yeah, this Avengers 263 is kind of build up to that happening, but I think it was an episode of Fantastic Four, I think also, because I think it was Byrne Fantastic Four at the time. But anyways, when X Factor started, these black and white in here, I scanned these pages. Here's number 2. I scanned the page in because I wanted a nice black and white version of it, so I could redraw it and see the lines without the color. And I went on this spree about 8 years ago. It was kind of in between. I just got laid off from as a mechanic, and then I started substitute teaching. But I think this is actually during the summer before school season started when I started subbing in between 2014 and 2015. I've got all these too. I won't show them all today, but there's a lot of them. If you can see these. These are 18 by 24 size paper. And it's going to be difficult to do on camera. I have to stand up here. Here's my other guide. So here was, I was bored. I had a lot of nice Prismacolor colored pencils, a big pad of newsprint. These are all on newsprint. And I just started redrawing the covers and then coloring them in. And this one, I don't believe this one's, I never finished it. I usually go over the black, oh maybe I did. I usually go over the blacks again with the black colored pencil to kind of give it some, you know, give it a darker black. So because the color is going over, I used what did I use? I used Prismacolor chisel tips and brush pens to do all the ink work with it. Just because it was the closest to using a dip brush as possible on that newsprint, and then went in with colored pencil to color it. Here's issue 2. I never finished it. I mean, I finished the inking part, and you can see the inks here, but I never finished the coloring. God, this is unruly. And I did a bunch of covers, but I'll stick to the ones that are pertinent. I did, and this might have been the first one that I did before I did pages, I did issue 1 and 2, or at least started them. Where are they at? Oh, here it is. You'll also see another recognizable comic on the other side. My God, it's actually kind of heavy. It's almost full. Or I think it is full. There's the issue 6. And I redid the color. I redid did the artwork. I was just bored, and I was kind of in between. I was kind of going through some stuff. This was kind of right around the time of the purge of comics, so maybe just right before it. And I had some time on my hands, and I had some materials, and just for my own, happiness, I just went and I just redrew a bunch of drawings that I liked or covers that I liked I saved them all in here. I had them up on the wall for a while, but because they're on newsprint, they're not archival, and they started to deteriorate a bit, the ones that I had on the wall, so I had to put them all in here so they would last longer. They probably won't last forever. They'll probably end up, they might, but there's a lot of stuff in there. And like I said, I'll go over this more in detail later, but that was more unruly than I thought it was going to be. Anyways, I redid the artwork for that for my own, pleasure, and so I kind of got into that stuff. Here's my number 2. Actually, I pulled number 2 out of my stack just so you can see it with 1 and 2. But I'm going to go over, I'll use the CBRs to kind of give you guys a close-up on that stuff. But again, it had this, and again, the black and white thing is pretty cool. You know, I could scan that and make a cool file of it, so I could see it bigger. Because what I, you know, it's I mean, so I can stare at this stuff too and draw, but it was a lot easier to make a bigger file that I could look at more in detail to draw that. To redraw that artwork. I mean, it's pretty, copying artwork is pretty simple, and that's how I started. And that was the other reason I did all that stuff, was I was just kind of feeling very nostalgic and very, you know, oh, I really loved that time period when that's all I was doing was copying artwork out of comic books, and that's how I learned. You know, I did that stuff all the time. Of course, I used colored pencils, used markers, whatever I get my hands on. And this is kind of at the same time. It's whatever I had left of my traditional art. And that actually is the last, for the most part, that's the last big run of traditional art that I ever did, because I made the switch over to digital in 2013. So it's been 10 years I've been doing stuff pretty much 100% digital. But that was like the last hurrah of the traditional stuff. You know, I have plans, or I guess I have a romantic notion that when I retire, which will probably be never, or hopefully I get to a point where I have more free time to do my own stuff in the future, I'd like to get a nice big drafting table board like I had before, you know, the lamp and all that stuff, and I'll probably break out and buy myself some traditional stuff and go back to basics. I'm not saying I'm going to copy covers and stuff. Heck, I might even redraw some of my own comics, you know, in traditional like that. And it's just, I find it very soothing to do that. And, you know, I might do that in the future, you know, and get away from, I might, you know, the digital thing serves its purpose, you know, and I enjoy it too. But I think in the future, I'd like to get back to the traditional stuff. I've dipped my toes back in traditional just here and there, and you end up losing, not really losing, but you end up getting in a mode when you go digital that you can't do traditionally. Obviously, there's no undo button. You can't constantly undo with traditional. I mean, once you lay it down, unless you got some way to correct it, it's down. So you kind of, and that was nice about that stuff, was it really got me back into, we got to get this all in one go. You know, and if we do end up in a problem area where I screw something up, how do I, you know, get out of it? How do I fix it? You know, real time, or I can't just, you know, make another layer or hit undo. So it kind of helped out. I think it helped out in my my current art, and I also think, you know, it was a nice recharge of the batteries, like I said. And I feel like I need that recharge again now, but, you know, I don't really have the time to do that much, you know, self-indulgence. So, in the future, sure, but for now, not really. Alright, let me switch over to, let me show you a couple of things first. Also, besides just the comics themselves. Sorry, there's a bird right up by my window here, looking at me. Hello! I sound like Bob Ross now. Well, look at this little bird. Anyways, oops, let's go back. Let's put me back on there. Hello! Alright, sorry. Here's the first few issues. I think it's 1 through 20. And like I said, these are CBRs. There's the issue 6 right here. You can see that pulled up. But also, when going back to the Marvel Universe, let's see, where am I at here? There was that drawing of Marvel Girl. Listen, I love this drawing of Marvel Girl. I really like it a lot. And, you know, I believe, let me just check this date now. Now I can go back to the beginning of the issue and we can check it here. Okay, this was July of 1986. So yes, this was out before this, so I didn't see this image yet. And I don't believe it was in any of the role-playing game books prior to 86. I believe it, yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was other Marvel Girl drawings and stuff in there, and they didn't do an X Factor related one prior to this. And which is why I'm going to get up to that. I remember I went over that advanced set that came out in 1986. I'll show you. That kind of solidified my X Factor love. Let's go back to that drawing real quick. So yeah, and then there were some little scenes. I love this scene here for obvious reasons. But that's with her when she had the full headpiece to the top of her mask. But I love this panel. I just always thought this panel was really nice. It has a lot of the stuff I like in it. I like the background character of all these, you know, the what were they called? Frenzy and Tower. Not Freedom Force. They're called, I can't remember what they're called. They had a name. And then here's Angel and Marvel Girl, of course. But there's some scenes that they had in there. Yeah, so in order to put this out, yeah, they had to have, because most of the stuff when it was printed, some of the pages were already done. So this is right here is from issue, and I'll show you, it's from issue number 6. February, March, April, May, June. July, and this was July. Wow, this may have come out right, because it is the last image. No, well, yeah, last image until they go to like the more classic X-Men stuff. But yeah, this might have. I mean, it probably didn't. It probably issue 6 came out then this one, but they're very close proximity to each other. And of course, she's on the cover too. I really like that drawing of her on the cover too. And there's a really good drawing of Mockingbird. I'm showing the legs, but I liked that, and I believe that's Byrne drawing the cover. And who was I forgot who drew Marvel Girl on the inside. Oh, it was Jackson Geist. That's what I thought it was. He was doing the art at the time. Geist was doing the art at the time. So yeah, so then in '86, remember, I got a hold of the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, the advanced set. And I'll flip over to that real quick. And that's when those, you know, they had those character cards. And they used, in the judge's manual, the entry for Marvel Girl was, you know, they did half that in black and white. But that was the same image. And then here she is there with the character card, like right in the shot here. Really just drop myself out for a minute. So there we go. And can I blow this up? So yeah, so there's her character card, that same drawing, and obviously recolored, because I think all these all look like they're watercolored. They did watercolor to color these. Like there's the Mockingbird, and her, you know, her skin tone. There's the legs. That also is the drawing from the Marvel Universe. I think most of these are the drawings. I know this one isn't, because the drawing of him wasn't in that costume, and I don't believe that's the drawing. That's obviously not, because he had the hair. And again, this is not the Colossus that they had, because I believe the Colossus in the Marvel Universe, he didn't have this. He had like a yellow other kind of close costume, but wasn't the same. But I love this, and I cut these cards out, and it's like, oh, I want to play X Factor all the time, and I really liked having these cards. That was always so cool to me. So yeah, so a lot of this stuff kind of solidified my love of X Factor. So let's get into the comic here. Let's go to issue 1. I'll put myself back on here so you can see my mug. But yeah, February 1st. Like I said, it could have come out in January. It could have come out in March, but it was right around that time. So yeah, he's there with Madeline Pryor and the little baby. I was going to call him Franklin Richards for a minute. That's not the same baby. A different baby. And they kind of go to this, and then, you know, and then, of course, there's Angel, and I always thought his girlfriend was really attractive in their little black bathing suit there in the pool. Can't remember what her name was off the top of my head. But they go through this little thing, Beast's there, and then what do you call it? They end up going to... I can't remember where they go, but regardless, there's that's right, this one guy, he kind of discovers his power. He's there home on leave from the Navy, or on shore from the Navy, and he discovers he's got this crazy mutant power, so he's a mutant. And basically the whole premise behind X Factor is they're posing as mutant hunters, but their real goal was to be able to find mutants and help them. but they could pose to the public as mutant hunters, which is it's just a weird. I don't know. It's very. I wouldn't even wrote it. Was it Claremont or was it Louise Simonson? It might have been. It was Bob Layton? No, that's Inkers. Bob Layton. Bob Layton wrote it. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming they all kind of talked about what they're doing. Oh, I know that. Yeah, Chris Claremont was against this. That's right. He didn't want to bring Jean Grey back. He was totally against it, and they brought him back anyways because of her popularity. And I guess if they're going to bring her back, this was an okay way to do it. So there's a little bit of the artwork. I really like the way the orange and the red on her hair really looks nice. I liked all the characters pretty equally as far as the guys. I mean, I thought Beast was cool. I liked Angel. I thought Iceman looked cool. Cyclops. They just had a very nice look to it, to them, especially in the costumes, all with the X on it. I really liked that. I used to draw that like crazy as a kid and try to get that X right all the time. But yeah, I really liked that. I think this is after she gets reacquainted. She finds out Jean's still alive, and there's that kind of thing. And of course, he instantly dumps Madeline with their newborn baby. And that whole kind of plays into. I mean, you probably know the story, but that all goes into what happened there. But he was a douche, I guess, in this comic as well, right from the get-go. I just didn't pick up on the douchiness of it. Even I thought he looked cool as a character. My eyes were really on her. And then we'll go to we'll flip through issue 2 real quick. Again, I'm not trying to tell you the story and try not to, again, spoiler alerts, but I mean, like I said, statute of limitation, I'll keep saying that, statute of limitations on spoilers at 30 years is definitely in place there. They fight Tower, he was on the cover, and then, that's when they started, to convert, or this guy started to convert Beast over. And I'm just going to flip over to number 6 real quick, just because it's a memorable issue. Love that cover. Absolutely love that cover. I mean, you couldn't get a better cover than that. As far as, I mean, you can, but I mean, that's a classic lineup. That's a classic look. I love the Apocalypse face. I'm not a huge Apocalypse fan, per se. I always thought this drawing was wonky. I thought his arms were too long, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. Was his knee broken or something? It was just a very weird drawing of Cyclops. It's just amazing. Just love that. I mean, I even love the full cowl mask too. I think that looks neat too. With those lines, and then you get the highlight on here. The lines and stuff on her eyebrow there. Lips look great. I think she just is very, very appealing looking. I love the side profile. That looks really nice. That almost looks like Arthur Adams a bit there, a little bit. And then, I mean, just on the page, too, those colors all work so well. There's a classic 6-panel layout. There's that. For people, I follow my artwork and stuff, I always talk about this when I'm mentioning to people that I work on the 6-panel system. I use the original system, like, from the classic stuff. Of 6 panels. I don't go to the 9 like from Dark Knight, and DC used the 9-panel grid a lot. I primarily use the 6-panel grid. Not that I do 6 exact square panels every page, but it's based on this like format. So like if you go to here, it's still kind of laid out in that same way, even though the panels are different. Here we go 6. They'll do a 6-paneler a lot to kind of break it up, but they might break up these panels here. But this is all based on the same system, which is all Kirby stuff. Kirby, one who came up with all that stuff. Between Kirby, Ditko, and those guys, I'd say it's great drawing there. Again, I'm going to blow this stuff up so you guys can see it better. Right there, yeah. See, I love that. It looks amazing. There's that great panel I love so much. Again, for obvious reasons, but I just love that. Love the way, I love, even with the guys too, love the way the feet are done. It's so hard. I still have trouble trying to get that down right, especially that kind of, I mean, it just seems like a simple shape, but you change it at different angles, and it becomes difficult to draw and get right. That's a great panel there. And busting through the window, that's pretty cool. And there, of course, there he is. There comes Apocalypse. I believe that's the first panel he shows up. I believe. There he is there. Again, I'm not a huge Apocalypse fan. I like Frenzy, too. I thought she was pretty appealing. Like the big, strong women. Big, tall, strong women. I like that. This is great art. Absolutely great. Classic Marvel, classic, of that time, house-style Marvel. I just wish that would come back. I try as hard as I can to mimic that now in my own work, which is, what a lot of people come to me for. And, and as I tell them, I tell people, though, this is when I was learning how to do all this stuff. So this stuff was fresh. And so, yes, I'm kind of still trying to go back and emulate that. But really, I mean, left under my own, if you were to not ask me to try to copy a style or whatever, and most of my stuff's going to look like that naturally anyways, because like I said, I stopped really looking at new comic art, and it doesn't influence me. None of the 90s stuff really influenced me. None of the Image stuff influenced me, and keep going. I mean, there's a few artists here and there that I liked, like Terry Dodson, Frank Cho. I mean, there's certain artists that sort of influenced me as well. But, today almost nobody. There's a couple that I sort of kind of like, but, they don't influence my art that much. So what I'm saying is, it's not a shtick for me to emulate this stuff. It's like, oh, I'm trying to emulate this stuff, It's like, I mean, I am, but the thing is, I'm not really emulating anything. It's just the way I draw. I might adhere more, I might look at the stuff closer and try to adhere more to the stuff. But, when I was a kid, I mean, I would do these heavy blacks. I would do these feathered lines, to certain degrees of execution, depending on the equipment that I had. It's hard to do this with a felt tip pen, but I would try anyways, Brush pens really weren't, they were kind of new at the time, and you couldn't really find a good brush pen at the time. So you would want to use a brush to do a lot of these feathered lines. And, they weren't super available, or they were expensive, or you need to get a bottle of ink and a brush, like a number 3 brush, especially that Winsor Newton, number 3 with a nice sable hair to it, and go to it. But, I was scared to do it back then using the brushes. And I needed the crutch of having some kind of self-contained pen. I mean, obviously Prismacolor, Faber-Castell, and Copic. I'll drink. And Copic really, really make a great pen. I got some somewhere. I can't pull them out at the moment here. Oh, I just had to pull this up for a second just to show you. Here's some Copic, just regular markers. And, well, actually, tell you the truth. Oh, jeez. Forgot about this stupid piece on top. But there's a black, just a straight up black. And normally I would use this to do fill-in. But you know what? Actually, that does have a... Oh, get away from the fan so it doesn't dry it out. It does have a brush tip to it. Not a perfect brush tip, but that is a brush tip. So you can technically use this pen. And then the other side should have chisel. There's your chisel tip. Now the nice thing about chisel tip is you can go thick and thin. So if you draw down and then you pull against the edge of the beveled edge of the chisel, and you can get that nice thin to thick, especially wrapping around like round edges like that, like right here. His head, right? Obviously there's black up here, but before you fill in this black, you're going to do that line. So I don't want it right on my screen here, but you would hold it on the long side for the top line, because the light's up there, so the thin line's going to be thinner, and then you'd pull it. You'd go around that curve of his head, and you'd pull it down to the thicker end of that chisel, and you'll get that line perfect. Usually in one go, it's usually pretty good. And as you can see, theirs isn't perfect either. It's not like they did it with a template or anything. And then of course you want to do those, you use that tip there, and you can get those feathered marks, follow those feathered marks you see on his neck and into his, his traps here. Nobody has that many muscle lines in their neck. A lot of the stuff is artistic license, You just kind of make stuff in that looks cool. But yeah, you can do all that stuff with this. But this isn't the actual pen I would use. This is more for coloring in, just like the color pens. I would probably use the they have a fine liner set that has two. They have a thicker and a thinner brush tip. I don't know if I think that might be the only way in Copic you get the chisel tip in here. So I don't know, maybe you would use that pen. But Prismacolor has a small set that gives you, I think, a number 1, fine liner, multi-liner. It gives you a number 3, a number 8, and then they give you a chisel and a brush. So you get 5 pens in that little set. It's like $20. It's kind of pricey still. And, it's a good set to use. That set I pretty much used for the most part on these until it ran out of ink. And then before I got another set of those, buddy of mine sent me some art supplies up, and ordered some art supplies for me because he knew I was low on cash, and gave me some set of art supplies. And one of the things in there was that multi-liner set from Copic, which has those other brush tips. And that's why I started converted over to that. There's a nice, it's totally actually not done. There was a Chun-Li kind of a collage of Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2 drawings that I did, and all of that stuff was inked with the Copic brush pen. So I really got used to that one. So there, I'll give you a little bit of art tutorial here and there. I just don't want to do an all-out art tutorial because, like I said, unless I have something that I can pertain it to, it's hard for me to teach that stuff. So I can just give you a little bits of it here and there. So if you are interested in that and you want to just keep watching my videos, especially when it comes to comic book stuff. I'll probably do a little bit of a little technique explanation there for what I use, for what I do. Again, I work digitally now, so that in particular I can do I use my stylus pen for my Wacom, for my Cintiq over here, and that obviously has a stylus tip pen, but I can use the inking pen tool in Sketchbook Pro, which will it's pressure sensitive, so if you give it a light, it's going to give you a thin line. And then if you want to do that same thing, as I said, on his head up there, you could do that. You just start out thin, light pressure, and then as you go around that corner, you start putting the heavy pressure on, and it'll thicken that line out and give you that. It's actually pretty precise too, especially if you've got the red steady assist, which when I go around curves and stuff, I'm always got that steady assist on because my hands aren't as they never really were super steady, but my steadiness is kind of off the older I get. I don't have carpal tunnel or anything. At least I don't think I have anything wrong with my hands, but I get a little nervous going around there, so I use that steady tool and pull it around that corner to do a line like that. Another little tidbit is even if you're working digital or traditional, don't do this. Don't draw with your wrist. It's okay if there's certain things you want to color things in, blah blah blah, blah, like that. But if you're drawing line work, try never to do this. Don't draw with your wrist. Draw with your whole. Start from your elbow and draw or pull down. You don't have to get that crazy, but the principle is draw with your whole arm. Use your arm as the pivot point. I have I can only go in that direction, up or down, so that's why I have to spin the canvas around to get it so I'm either going to go up with it or I'm going to go down with it. So I have to spin the canvas to that section. If I'm working traditionally, obviously I move the paper around to do that same thing. And I can usually get that perfect line. You throw some little bit of assist on there too, some steady tool assist, and you'll really get that line down perfect. And that's how I do it. If it wasn't for that steady tool, my stuff would be pretty shaky. And again, when you go into now with traditional stuff, there's certain things that can help you out as well. And I'm out of practice right now, so I definitely have to do a lot of sketchbook work to get back into practice if I was going to do anything big like that or finish any of those old drawings. But probably, the newsprint was a bad idea, so I would probably convert some of that stuff that's unfinished over to bristle or some kind of board. I could just light box it through. But yeah, so let's go back to X Factor. We got a few more minutes. We're at 40 minutes, so again, I really like the X Factor. It was really a major thing. Let's see if there's any more issues of note that you might want to see. Well, I really like that cover too as well. I think that's a Simonson cover, I believe. Again, I'm not a huge Simonson fan, but I like that cover. The and again, this is right when Mutant Massacre started. So Mutant Massacre was pretty much right in the first 10 issues of X Factor. That's when that started. Of course, then it was the 25th anniversary issue. So the X Factor 25th anniversary is number 10. That's like right into November 1986. So again, that's that time period, and that was when my comic book collecting and comic reading, comic drawing. I mean, that's pretty much all I did. I mean, I was kind of done with action figures at this time. There wasn't really much out I liked too much too. I was still kind of into G.I. Joe and still picking up some G.I. Joe stuff here and there. Transformers, it's the year the Transformer movie came out too, and I was, like I said, I came out of there watching that movie, and I kind of wanted some of the new Transformers, but I didn't get a lot of them. So Transformers kind of on its way out for me. Like I said, I was in junior high at the time, and again, you didn't want anybody to know you were still playing with toys. Comic books seemed to sort of have a, what do you call it, get out of jail free card with comics. Kids didn't seem to pick on you as much because it seemed like, because they probably also have seen adults into it too. They go to those conventions, it's all pretty much adults. So, and they're questionable adults, but they're adults nonetheless. So, and maybe some of these kids had dads that were kind of into this stuff. I highly doubt it, though. I don't remember anybody's dad really being into comics. I think there was a couple of girls. There was a girl in the trailer park. Her dad liked comics, and he was about the only dad that I knew. I mean, my dad loved sports cards, but he didn't really care so much for comics. Yeah, so that was that time period. So you're kind of like, I don't need to be playing with a lot of toys at this time. I want to get caught. Comic books seem to be something I can be passionate about and get away with. Because, I mean, I used to bring comics to school, read them in school. I would draw comics. I would be drawing all the time. And this is kind of also the time when everybody kind of, hey, that Tim guy, he really can draw. And, like I said, I learned later on in life that I made a lot of people mad with my drawing ability. They're all jealous of my ability. And, I'm not trying to puff myself up, but I mean, I was probably better than most of the kids at school that could draw, I mean, my friend that I met at the time, he was really good, and a couple other guys that I knew, a couple older people. I mean, I didn't see Forrest, sorry, saying his name, I didn't see my one friend from the past, because he was still back at West, and in 8th grade, he would have been in 9th grade at West. I didn't see him back till high school, and so I don't know what he was drawing at the time. I'll actually take that back. You know what? I went over to his house once, at one point, and he had a sketchbook, and he had drawn the X Factor characters. I remember that. Yeah, that's right. And I was pretty impressed. But I think he still has those drawings because we were in our 30s, and he showed me. I went over to his apartment. And he showed me, he's like, oh, you want to see those drawings again? So he pulled those drawings out. I love those drawings that he did. Full color, I mean, they're just kind of sketchbooky drawings, but they're really good. Beast and Cyclops and Angel. But yeah, he probably still has them too. I'd like to see those again. My other friend was drawing stuff at the time. It's kind of the joke whenever I wherever we talk about that day, we met each other, he's like, oh, all you kept going on with was how much you loved X Factor and how much you liked Cyclops. And I remember that. I was going on. Like I said, I didn't like the character of Scott Summers. I just liked Cyclops, liked the look of his character. And that's what it was, more so, And even Jean Grey, I don't really care about the drama behind him and them either. I just really liked the look of her. I loved the red hair, and I loved the green outfit with the yellow stripes. I loved that. And I still love it today. Yeah, he still brings that up occasionally. He's like, yeah, when you got X Factor, and he was right. I wouldn't shut up about that for probably a good 15 minutes while they're waiting to get to see the counselor to get our classes. That's all. All of this stuff. That's all right in that pocket of time right there. That 1986, 1987. Of course, that was 87. And that was January. So what? It's January 87 issue. So that one had just come out. So I think it was even before. Yeah, it was probably this issue. Either this issue hadn't come out yet because it was literally right after we got back, which is like the 3rd of January. From the break, switching over to the schools, or that was still the one that was on the shelf at the time. Some reason I think that was still. I don't think this came out until a couple of weeks or a week later. And then when Simonson took over for a while, I still collected it, and I was just kind of I remember this issue also. I went back up to the University of Michigan. My sister would have been getting ready to graduate because this would be her final semester as a senior in the spring. That would have been the spring of 1987. She was just getting ready to graduate, and I think I went up there one more time to see her before she graduated, and hit Dave's Comics and hit all that stuff, because we could obviously go back up to Ann Arbor anytime we wanted to, and I think we did a couple of times because she had to run back up there for something. But as far as while she was in school, though, that was the last time. And I remember we were walking around downtown, and I'd stop at every single bookstore because it was a college campus, so there'd be a lot of bookstores, and almost every bookstore had some form of a spinner rack or a comic shelf, near the periodicals. And I was looking to see if there's any issues that I had missed that week, or even prior to that. And I must have missed that issue because I remember picking up that issue off of, there's this one bookstore on a corner, kind of on campus. If you ever been to Ann Arbor, it would have been kind of near where the Borders used to be. So it's around the corner from the Student Union. I think it's not. Was that State Street? I can't remember. It was one street. Here's the street. Here's the street. Here's the Student Union, and there's the math hall there. So if you go this way, or if you go out of the Student Union, turn left, go down a few blocks. I think there's like a historic or an archaeology museum / building that's right there. Then you make a left-hand turn. I know there's an Urban Outfitters. At least there was last time I was in Ann Arbor there. But you make a heck of a turn there. And I think Steve's Ice Cream, I believe, is on the corner there, which is now a Starbucks. But if you make a left there and head into town, it was about 2 blocks down. There was a martial arts supply store. I don't know if it's still there. They used to get ninja stars from. My sister used to get so mad at me. But anyways, there's that. There's a music store. I know there's Savaz, which is like a vegetarian restaurant. I don't know if that's still there either. But right there was this bookstore. It was kind of on the corner, and you kind of walked down. It was a downstairs. You had to walk down these stairs, cement stairs, into like the bottom doors, and then the bookstore is there. So when you walked along the sidewalk, you'd be looking at like the top window of that bookstore. And I remember walking past there and catching my eye and seeing a spinner rack, and I remember going in there. I believe that's where I got that, and I believe I also picked up whatever issue of Transformers was there at the time. I think it was the Triptychon, the big, whatever his name was, the giant Tyrannosaurus Rex, like multi-changing city. I can't remember his name is off the top of my head, but that was also a comic I picked up, I think, at that day on that and that little spinner rack there. I mean, I could vividly remember these places. I mean, that's just, I could see it. I could see that building. I can see that street. I can see that spinner rack. I can see that issue sitting on the spinner rack. I don't know exactly where it was on the tier, but I mean, it was somewhere in the middle, and I remember spinning that around and getting those, and then I'd go to the next bookstore, go to the next bookstore. My sister was like, let's stop going into bookstores. I'm sick of us looking at comic books. But I was starving for comics. I had to have my comics, you know. I saved up some money to bring up to me to go spend, you know, in Ann Arbor there. So, you know, these 75 cents a piece, I can buy a lot of comics for like 20 bucks. I mean, a lot. So, Electric Warrior, I think, might have been one that I got. I'm just trying to think of the comics right about that trip. And then, yeah, so she was also living she wasn't in the sorority house this time. I remember she had an apartment. There was a situation that maybe I shouldn't go into that happened at that apartment. But anyways, I don't know if she was at that one or she was at, and I think she, because of the situation at that apartment, she moved out to another one. And I think she was dating a guy at the time. I know she had one boyfriend there, but I think she was dating a guy, and I think that guy was pretty well versed in comics, if that's the same guy I'm thinking of. Maybe not. I just remember that other apartment and sitting there. I remember the Saturday morning, watched the Saturday morning cartoons at that apartment too. I think that was right before we went out, because they said, what do you want to do today? I want to go out and look for comics. You know, I want to hit Dave's Comics, and I want to go to Steve's, and I want to go to the Parthenon, you know, get my gyro from Parthenon, which was also gone. Everything's gone. You know, everywhere I go, whether it's my hometown of Rochester, Ann Arbor, everywhere I go, everything that I love is gone. So it's a shame, you know. But, all right, I've blathered on for 50 minutes here. So I'm going to end it here. So that's kind of, you know, into X Factor, my background with X Factor. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do for, well, this would technically be the Friday episode, so then I'm going to record a Monday episode next, which will probably, okay, let me, real quick, this will probably drop on the Friday right before I go on vacation, so let me just say this now. Next week, I'm going to be out of town all week, going on vacation, and I have no way to post videos, even though I'll probably have them pre-recorded. They won't fit on my tablet, so I'm not going to be able to take these videos and put them on YouTube. I mean, I could maybe, like, Saturday. We're going to leave early Sunday morning, so Saturday, maybe I'll throw one. I don't know. I'll probably just wait, and I won't be back till the following weekend. So, and again, I'm only putting stuff out on Monday through Friday, so this will probably be the last video for about a week, or just over a week. Let's see if this is on a Friday, and then I'll miss the next Friday. Yeah, so it'll be the Monday after that. I don't know what the date is exactly. What is it? So the 22nd? Yeah, so 23rd. Yeah, so this will be, because I'm recording this on the 9th, as you can see here. So these will be, this is the date I'm going to publish the one I'm recording right now. So next week I'll be gone, and then I'll be back this weekend, so I'll be putting Mondays out, and I'll probably be putting all 5 of those out. I am going to run out of town just for a couple of days here, but it won't affect the recording or the posting. So the 24th will be the next, which will be a Monday, which will be the next issue I do here. So until then, you know, take care. You know, like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz. You know, help me build this channel up again. I keep saying it, of course, and most people do say it at the end of their videos. I'll try not to excessively keep driving it down your throat, but I would really like if people would, you know, like, subscribe. Really what I like the most, I mean, subscribing is great. I love to make some money on these eventually, but I think the biggest thing is start a dialogue with me. You know, make a comment, say something. You know, I got a couple of comments already. You know, I've got my first kind of sort of negative comment, you know, but yeah, give me some. I like to talk about this stuff. You know, I like to create a dialogue between people. So that's what I'm really more looking for here, is I want to talk shop with this stuff. You got questions? You know, you want to know about my comics, you know, and my stuff that I do? Hit me up. I'll tell you about that stuff. I'll give you links and direct you to that. So, all right. Sorry, I keep looking at the screen. I'm trying to look at the camera. So, all right, I'll catch you guys when I get back from a vacation, and hope you have a good July as well. At least the rest of the month. I'll be back for the month's over, but hope you guys have a good week too while I'm gone. And yeah, we'll be right back at it for some more stuff. Hopefully, a couple of things will be in the mail that I ordered. So hopefully, I can do some videos on that as well. All right, catch you guys later. Take care. Bye bye.